The pounding started at 6 a.m. Sharp. Like someone was trying to break down my door with a battering ram instead of knuckles. I stumbled into the hallway in my ratty bathrobe, heart still half asleep from another night of missing Laura, when two clowns in ill-fitting uniforms shoved plastic badges in my face that looked like they came straight from a kid's toy aisle. "Step outside, sir. You're under HOA enforcement arrest for unauthorized construction." The bigger one growled it like he'd practiced the line in the mirror, cheap cologne and desperation rolling off him in waves. Their unmarked sedan idled at the curb like it was embarrassed to be part of this circus. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I just stood there, letting the morning chill hit my bare legs, watching their eyes dart around like they expected me to crumble. Because here's the thing these suburban tyrants never understood. The quieter you stay, the louder their mistakes scream. 3 months earlier, Pinehaven Estates had looked like the answer to every prayer I stopped believing in after cancer stole Laura. 22 years of marriage, gone in the blink of a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and broken promises. I'd retired from the force early, couldn't stomach putting the badge back on when every call reminded me of her empty chair at the kitchen table. So I sold our old place, packed up the grief, and landed here in this cookie-cutter paradise where retirees waved from porches and kids rode bikes without helmets. The single-story ranch with the maple trees out front felt like somewhere Laura would have loved. Space for the roses she always stopped to smell, even when we were late for dinner. First thing I did? Built her memorial garden in the sunniest corner of the backyard. 3 weekends on my knees, dirt under my nails, back screaming, planting heritage roses the exact shade of pink she wore on our wedding day. The old chain-link fence behind it looked like prison bars. Laura hated those things, called them ugly reminders people are caged. So I dropped $1,200 I barely had and swapped it for tall cedar privacy panels that smelled like warm forest when the sun hit. Not for property values. Not for curb appeal. For her. For the dignity she deserved even if she wasn't here to see it. I was still sweeping sawdust when the white Escalade rolled up slow, like a shark circling chum. The engine died. The door opened. And out stepped Vanessa Sterling, Pinehaven's HOA president, like she'd stepped off the cover of Tyrant's Monthly. Perfect blonde helmet hair, blazer starched within an inch of its life, heels that could double as weapons, and a cloud of floral perfume so aggressive it made my eyes water from 10 feet away. She clutched a binder thick enough to stop a bullet. "Good morning," she purred, voice dripping honey over razor blades. "I'm Vanessa Sterling, president of the Pinehaven Homeowners Association. And you must be the new neighbor who thinks rules are optional." Her eyes flicked past me to the cedar fence like it had personally insulted her bloodline. "Sweetie, what on earth is that monstrosity?" I kept my tone even. "Memorial garden for my wife. Fence replacement approved by the previous board." Her smile stretched wider, too wide like a doll someone forgot to wind down. She flipped open the binder with a flourish. "Oh, sweetie. Those old approvals? Expired the second new leadership took over. Section 14C clearly states any exterior modification must maintain aesthetic harmony. Your little project disrupts the entire street's visual cohesion." She snapped her fingers and a sweaty guy waddled out from behind the Escalade. Derek Holt, her so-called enforcement officer. Uniform 2 sizes too small, clipboard in one hand, tape measure in the other like he was auditioning for the world's worst handyman. Derek dragged the tape across my panels, muttering numbers like they were death threats. "Violation confirmed. 72 hours to remove or face daily fines and possible lien on your property." Vanessa leaned in, perfume stabbing straight into my sinuses. "We just want what's best for the community, darling. Property values depend on cooperation." She handed me the notice like it was a party invitation. "Don't make this unpleasant." They climbed back into the Escalade and drove off like they just won the Super Bowl. I stood there holding the paper, watching the roses sway gently in the breeze. Laura would have laughed at the absurdity. Me? I folded the notice, slipped it into my pocket, and went inside. No yelling. No calls. Just quiet. Because I'd spent 15 years on the force watching predators like this reveal themselves the second they thought they had the upper hand. And Vanessa Sterling? She was about to hand me the entire playbook. That same week the stories started trickling in like poison leaking under doors. Old Mrs. Hargrove next door, 78 widow, hands shaking when she knocked, showed me a stack of fines for hazardous garden gnomes that were apparently visual clutter. $8,000 she paid because she was terrified of losing the house she'd lived in for 40 years. They came at 11 p.m. Once, she whispered, eyes wet. Derek, banging like the world was ending, said it was a surprise compliance check. Down the street, the Park family, quiet Korean immigrants with 2 little boys who loved stacking river stones in their yard, got hit with cultural non-compliance violations. Vanessa told them the stones were foreign religious displays, destroying neighborhood uniformity. They paid every cent because English wasn't their first language and fear was universal. Then there was single mom Rachel on Maple Lane working nights, 2 kids under 10. Derek inspected her place weekly. Trash cans visible for 6 minutes, kids' bikes left out, even a towel drying on the railing. $2,000 in sanitation infractions. When she fell behind, Vanessa threatened child services. Rachel told me she spent one whole night on the floor of her kids' room holding their hands, convinced the next knock would take them away. I listened to every single one without saying much. Just nodded, took notes in the old leather journal Laura gave me years ago, and let the rage settle into something colder. Something useful. By the end of week 2 the fines started hitting my door too. $500 for the fence, then $50 a day accumulating like interest on a mafia loan. Neon stickers on my mailbox. Derek creeping across the street pretending not to stare. I peeled every sticker off calm as Sunday morning, logged every timestamp, and smiled at the camera I'd quietly installed the day after Vanessa's visit. They thought they were breaking me. They had no idea they were building their own noose. The pressure cooker kept tightening. Every sunrise brought a fresh humiliation. Day 3. Derek pounding on my door at dawn for an emergency compliance inspection. That definitely wasn't in any real rulebook. He pushed past me without waiting, dragging his dirty fingers along the cedar panels, muttering nonsense while sweat poured down his face even though it was 60 degrees. Failure to remove triggers legal escalation, he snarled. I just watched him, arms crossed, letting the silence stretch until his left eye twitched. People like Derek only function when their victims flinch. I didn't. By day 5 the harassment went full cartoon. Vanessa arrived at noon in another power blazer, gaveling the air with her manicured hand like she was running Congress. This is your final chance, sweetie. Comply or we protect the community by any means necessary. The perfume cloud was so thick I half expected the roses to wilt from the fumes alone. She snapped at Derek and 2 new volunteers who looked like they'd been recruited from the clearance rack at Walmart security. They circled my house taking pictures of my doormat for God's sake, muttering about unregistered exterior decor. I almost laughed out loud. Almost. Instead I hit record on my phone and let them dig their hole deeper. That night a handwritten note slid under my door. Remove the fence or else. Aggressive handwriting, letters carved deep like whoever wrote it was imagining my throat. I added it to the growing binder without a word. I'd seen enough scams in my detective days to know this wasn't incompetence. This was theater. And every ticket, every threat, every midnight knock was a gift-wrapped piece of evidence. So while they played their game I started mine. First stop, County Records Office. The clerk raised an eyebrow when I asked for Pinehaven HOA filings. You sure? Most folks just pay the fines and move on. He brought back nothing. No charter. No state registration. No nonprofit status. The HOA didn't legally exist. It was a ghost wearing lipstick and heels. I dug deeper. Pulled 5 years of supposed financials, 2 pages of scribbled nonsense. Vanessa Sterling administrative consulting fees, $14,000. Derek Holt maintenance services, $12,000. Both companies, fake. No licenses. No real addresses. Just a PO. Box under Vanessa's maiden name looping money back to her. Then the pattern in the violation codes hit me like a freight train. Fines to widows started with 72. Immigrant families with 05. Single parents with 19. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was categorizing victims like livestock. I'd seen gangs do the same thing, track who folds fastest. Vanessa just used clipboards instead of guns. I traced her history next. Another county 5 years back. Dissolved HOA after missing funds and forged documents. President, Vanessa Sterling. Same Derek. Same playbook. She wasn't a neighborhood busybody. She was a professional predator who simply moved when the heat got too close. My kitchen table looked like a war room by midnight. Stacks of documents, timelines, recordings, photos of every scorched rose from the night Derek tried to accidentally torch the fence with a homemade bottle torch while I watched from the window. I caught the whole thing on camera. Arson. Child endangerment threats. Elder abuse. Impersonating law enforcement. Federal territory. I whispered it to the empty kitchen like a prayer and a promise. This isn't harassment anymore. This is fraud. And I'm done being quiet. The neighbors finally broke in Marcus's garage one humid Thursday night. The air smelled like motor oil and fear. Folding chairs in a circle. Mrs. Hargrove clutching her folder of fines like a shield. The Park family huddled together. Kids coloring quietly in the corner. Rachel with her 2 little ones pressed against her sides like they might vanish. Tom the mechanic, grease still on his knuckles, fists clenched so tight the veins stood out. I waited until everyone sat. Then I laid it out, calm, no drama. You're not crazy. You're not weak. Vanessa and Derek built a machine that feeds on exactly the people who can't fight back. But machines have off switches. I didn't tell them I used to run entire fraud task forces. Not yet. I just showed them the patterns on the whiteboard. Dates, codes, dollar amounts, the fake companies. Gasps rippled through the room like wind through wheat. Mrs. Hargrove wiped her eyes. I thought it was just me. Rachel's voice cracked. They threatened my kids. Mr. Park bowed his head. We paid because we were scared. One by one they opened up. Sidewalk chalk declared visual pollution. Teenagers followed home for loitering verification. Backyard access demanded at midnight. Every story fit the same sick blueprint. I stood up. What they did to one of us, they did to all of us. From now on we document everything, photos, recordings, timestamps. No more silence. We build a case they can't wiggle out of. They left taller that night. Shoulders back. Eyes clear. The fear didn't vanish, but it turned into something sharper, resolve. We became a network. Eyes on every street. Phones ready. Evidence piling up like snow before an avalanche. Vanessa and Derek smelled the shift. So they went nuclear. The next morning Derek showed up in full costume. Fake police uniform, shiny toy badge crooked on his chest, plastic handcuffs jingling like cheap jewelry. He strutted across my lawn like he owned the Constitution. Under HOA Enforcement Statute 712, you're under administrative arrest for non-compliance. Behind him Vanessa stood at the curb in an actual judge's robe she'd clearly ordered online, holding a gavel like a scepter. I raised my phone and hit record. Derek kept ranting fake legalese while sweat poured down his face. Vanessa smiled that poisonous smile, until she noticed the neighbors stepping out of their homes one by one. Phones up. Recording. Silent wall of witnesses. Derek reached for the plastic cuffs. I took one step back, keeping him perfectly framed. You're really going to do this on camera? He hesitated. Vanessa snapped. Finish it. That's when he grabbed for my arm. And that's when I finally spoke the words I'd been saving for months. Federal agents, hands where we can see them. 3 unmarked SUVs rolled down the street in perfect sync, lights flashing behind grills. Tactical vests. Real badges. The task force I'd called at 4 a.m. Using the one number I swore I'd never dial again. Vanessa's face went ghost white. The gavel clattered to the pavement. This is a misunderstanding. We're community leaders. Derek tried to run. His fake utility belt tangled around his knees and he face-planted into my grass like the clown he was. Agents hauled him up while he blubbered. I was just following orders. I stepped forward in the uniform I'd kept in the closet all these months. Real badge gleaming, ribbons earned in blood and years Vanessa could never imagine. Vanessa Sterling Derek Holt, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, impersonating law enforcement, arson, elder abuse, child endangerment and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. The neighbors erupted, cheers, tears, applause rolling down the street like thunder. Mrs. Hargrove stood straighter than I'd ever seen her. Rachel's kids laughed for the first time in months. The Park family hugged so tight it looked like they'd never let go. As the SUVs pulled away with Vanessa sobbing mascara rivers and Derek still whining in the back seat, I looked at the memorial garden. Half the roses scorched but the rest still blooming defiant pink against the sky. Laura would have loved this ending. Justice doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door down wearing the badge you thought you left behind. The neighborhood changed overnight. Fines vanished. The fake rulebook got shredded on live camera by the county attorney. Pine Haven Estates finally felt like the quiet haven it was supposed to be. Kids drawing chalk on sidewalks without fear. Garden gnomes standing proud, stones stacked in cultural pride, towels drying on railings like they belonged there. I planted new roses where the old ones burned. Stronger ones. The kind that survive fire. Every morning I sit with my coffee and watch them climb the cedar fence that still stands, because the only thing that got removed was the people who thought they could own other people's peace. Vanessa and Derek? They're both facing years. Federal fraud charges don't play. Turns out when you impersonate cops, threaten kids, and try to burn down a dead woman's memorial, judges tend to frown on that. Last I heard, Vanessa was trying to sue the county for defamation of her leadership. The judge laughed so hard he had to recess. But the real victory wasn't the handcuffs. It was the look on Mrs. Hargrove's face when she watered her gnomes without checking over her shoulder. The sound of Rachel's kids laughing on the porch instead of hiding. The Park family's stones still proudly stacked, now with the little plaque that reads community approved. Finally. I thought moving here would be the end of my fighting days. Turns out it was just the beginning of the right kind of fight, the one where the quiet guy wins because he never forgot how to watch, wait, and strike when the predators get sloppy. So here's the question I want you to answer honestly in the comments. When the HOA Karen and her fake cop sidekick came for the fence, the roses, and the dignity of everyone on the street, who was really in the wrong? The couple who paid thousands out of fear? Or the man who stayed silent until he could make sure they never hurt anyone again? Was it justice, or did the neighborhood finally learn the only rule that matters? Drop your answer below. Because next week we're tackling another HOA nightmare that'll make this one look tame. If you're tired of bullies with clipboards ruining lives, hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. And remember, your silence is their power. Take it back. I'll see you in the next one. Stay loud. Stay free. And whatever you do, don't let them touch your roses.